Hi, I'm Colin Bateman, novelist, screenwriter and sex symbol, and I'm here to answer some questions about my career at Bangor Courthouse for the Open House Festival. Of all the characters you've created, who's your favourite and why? It's a question from Laura. I think Dan Starkey from Divorcing Jack is my favourite character. He's a character I've come back to time and time again. He's just so much part of me. He's funny and he's a big drinker and he just gets into all kinds of scrapes. So I just love writing about him all the time. This is a question from Martin. As you're filming this in the courthouse, have you ever been in the courthouse in front of a judge yourself? And the answer is yes, I have, although I wasn't convicted. No, I actually spent many years in here because I was a young reporter on the County Down Spectator, and I would come here every Wednesday and every Friday and report all the cases that were taking place. So I know the building very well. Never any very exciting cases. There were no murders, no bank robberies. It was always small things like theft and burglary and drunk and disorderly. So not the most exciting place, but certainly very familiar with it. And this is a question from Siobhan. What do you come up with first, the title, the protagonist, or the plot? I think I've nearly always come up with the title first, strangely enough. And that started right back with Divorcing Jack 25 years ago. And I remember how I got that because I was lying in the bath, which nobody wants to picture, but there was classical music on the radio and it was by Dvorak. And for some reason the name Dvorak stuck in my head and I kept repeating it over and over. Dvorak, Dvorak. And out of that I got Divorcing Jack, and that became the title of my first book. And all the books after that always had a story, something like that, where there was something that made me think that would be a good title. And I hadn't even thought about the story or the plot or the characters at that stage. So that has been the pattern all along. There have been a lot of murders in your books. Do you have a favourite death scene and what makes it so special? And that's one from Charlie. Yes, there have been a lot of murders in my books. I sort of hate to keep going back to the first book, but I think that set the pattern for what came afterwards. So in Divorcing Jack, there's an American character called Charlie Parker who looks as if he's going to be one of the main protagonists in the book, and then I kill him off very early, and that set the pattern for what came afterwards of doing the unexpected, and I think that's what makes it a bit interesting and thrilling. Hopefully that you start to love a character and then suddenly you kill him and you think, what the hell's going on here? And the next question comes from Rachel. Tell us something you've never told a living soul before. No. This is a question from Connor. Who has been the single most influential person in your life? And you know, I think it would have to be Annie Roycroft, who was my first editor on the County Down Spectator. When I joined there, I was 17 years old and very shy and very quiet. But she gave me such complete freedom to write about whatever I wanted to write about. Which was so unexpected and so surprising, especially on a small weekly newspaper. And she was a Sunday school teacher and seemingly very straight and old-fashioned, but she just said, write about whatever you want to write about. And she let me get away with murder. And I think that's where it really fired my imagination and where many of the stories came from, where the inspirations came from for the books that I later wrote. So this question from Tracy, 2 questions actually. What has been the proudest moment of your career to date? I think the one I have happiest memories of is probably when we took the film The Journey to the Venice Film Festival. So to have your work, projected in this hugely prestigious film festival, and to sit there while the audience turned around at the end and stood up, and we were all sitting on the balcony, and they gave us like 5 minutes standing ovation, which was so nice to get, because the early reviews of the movie had come out and they weren't that great, but to see it actually with an audience and their reaction to it made it all worthwhile. And then within the next few days, this glowing review came out in Variety, which is the sort of industry Bible, and once you get a good review there, you're kind of set. So the whole experience of being at the Venice Film Festival is certainly one I'm very proud of. And the most bizarre moment, well, I suppose the most surreal moment is again connected to that movie, because although it starred Timothy Spall and Colin Meaney, initially it was going to star Liam Neeson and Kenneth Branagh, and I flew over to New York to meet Liam Neeson in his apartment overlooking Central Park. And as you can imagine, it wasn't exactly a bed set. It was this very luxurious apartment, and meeting Liam for the first time was wonderful. And then Kenneth Branagh came in, because he was originally going to play Martin McGuinness, and we did this reading of the whole script, which was just amazing to see these two superstars reading the script I'd written, and I recorded it all as well, and I have a tape of that, or as I tend to think of it, as my retirement fund. But it was certainly a surreal and bizarre moment. This is a question from Simon. What is your new play Nutcase about? And how does writing for stage differ to writing for screen? The new play, yes, is called Nutcase. It's kind of an exploration of mental health and schizophrenia, and it's based on an incident, I suppose, in my family. So it's been a hard play to write, very emotional, but very rewarding as well. And it's going to be staged at the Playhouse Theatre in Derry this summer. And writing for the stage is slightly different. There's probably more respect paid to the writer than there is in screenwriting, which is what I normally do, where the director is ultimately in charge. With writing for the stage, it's usually the writer that not so much in charge, but there's more respect paid to what you've actually written, and if they want to change a line, they have to come to you and say, well, can we change this? And then you make your argument about why they shouldn't. But I love writing for the stage. You get that immediate reaction from the audience, and it's different every night. So I absolutely love it. This is a question from Leanne. What have you missed most this past year, and what are you most looking forward to when this is all over? Well, I think like everyone, I've missed meeting friends and going out for a drink and doing all the social things, but I love the movies, I love going to the cinema, so I've missed seeing films on the big screen and new films being released. I've always been a huge film buff, so that's been kind of taken away. I also miss playing football. I play five-a-side football twice a week, and it's the only time I think when I forget about whatever else is going on in my life, whether it's work or personal. When I'm playing football, I just get lost in a different world, and I really miss that, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to it. This is a question from Peter. You have written about a fictional pandemic in your children's book, Titanic 2020. Do you think you'll ever write about the current pandemic? Yes, I did write about a pandemic in Titanic 2020. I would like to be able to claim that I had great foresight that something like this would happen in 2020, but it would just seem to me like a really good story. The Titanic 2020 book was set on a cruise liner where the passengers got stranded in the middle of a pandemic, which was actually much worse than the one we are currently experiencing, and all the adventures that the crew had and the kids who were stuck on board. Will I write about the current one? Well, I have actually. I've written about it in the new play, Nutcase. Some of the scenes towards the end of the play are very much set during the pandemic, so it's hopefully people will relate to that and understand the experiences some of the characters go through. And it's been a great experience to be able to write about something in real time as well. So I hope people will go and see it. This is a question from David. How many times have the tabloids tried to pass off the front cover of Divorcing Jack as a girl from ISIS? Many times is the answer. And it's the rather remarkable true story that the front cover of my first book, Divorcing Jack, which featured a nun with a gun, was kind of hijacked by ISIS. There was a woman from England called Sally Ann Jones who was radicalised and went to Syria and began recruiting people for ISIS, and she chose to use a slightly modified version of my front cover as her recruiting poster for ISIS, and she lured many young women, many of them to their deaths in Syria, using my cover, which is rather surreal and quite disturbing. And in fact, she was eventually killed by an American drone strike. So it's a very sad and disturbing story, and certainly to see your own cover reproduced in newspapers all over the world because of that. And this is the final question from Patricia. What are you working on at the moment? I've actually been working on a memoir about growing up in Bangor during the 60s and 70s, kind of inspired or forced upon me by lockdown. It's made me turn to the past, and I've been trying to dredge up everything I can remember about the happy times I had growing up in Bangor. And it's been great fun, because you think you've forgotten everything, but all these details keep coming back and one thing leads to another, and I've really enjoyed it. So hopefully that will turn into a book, which will come out hopefully next year. So thanks for that, Patricia. I've been Colin Bateman. This has been the Courthouse in Bangor. Thank you.